Storm number 9 hit Austin earlier than forecast. Rain lashed against the windshield of my old pickup truck like water bullets. The wipers were working at full capacity, but still couldn't wipe away the fatigue in my eyes. 12 hours at the construction site. 12 hours of shouting into the walkie-talkie, directing concrete pouring under pouring rain. All I wanted right now was a hot shower, a hot dinner, and the soft king-size bed in the master bedroom overlooking the lake. I turned onto the familiar gravel driveway. Headlights swept across the limestone archway that I had hand-picked stone by stone 10 years ago. But tonight, something was wrong. There was a strange object blocking the entrance to my garage. A shiny black Maserati Ghibli. It was parked right in the middle of the driveway, taking up the space of 2 cars. Like a predator marking its territory. I had to brake hard, tires sliding slightly on the wet gravel. My heart tightened a beat. Not out of fear, but because a bad feeling was rising in my stomach. I knew this car. Or at least, I knew the type of person who drove this car. I turned off the engine, pulled my jacket over my head, and ran through the rain to the porch. The front door was unlocked. I pushed the door open. Warm and dry air rushed in, but it carried a strange scent. Not the sandalwood-scented candles Sarah usually burned, but a strong smell of men's cologne. The smell of expensive musk and arrogance. "Oh, Jack is back!" My father-in-law, Frank's voice rang out from the living room. I stood in the entryway, rainwater dripping onto the expensive Persian rug. The scene before me made my blood run cold. In the living room, the fireplace was crackling. Frank was sitting in the armchair, holding a glass of brandy. Sarah, my wife, was sitting on the sofa. And sitting right next to her, his arm draped over the back of the chair naturally to the point of discomfort, was a stranger. He wore a silk shirt, unbuttoned at the chest, revealing artificial tan skin. He was smiling, a blindingly white, perfect, and fake smile. "Jack!" Sarah stood up, but she didn't walk towards me. She stood still, crossing her arms, her cold eyes scanning my soaked clothes. "You're getting the floor wet." Not a word of greeting, not a hug, just annoyance. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice hoarse from cold and anger. The stranger stood up, extending a soft hand. "Mark," he said, his voice slick. "Mark Sterling, Frank's new investment partner. I've heard a lot about you, Jack." "The builder, right?" I didn't shake his hand. I looked at Frank. "Dad, what is this? Why is there a stranger in the house at this hour?" Frank took a sip of wine, clicking his tongue. "Don't be so rude, Jack. Mark just flew in from New York to discuss the development project for the South Lot. The storm is too bad, so he can't drive back to the hotel. So he will stay here tonight." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Fine. There are still 2 guest bedrooms downstairs. Let me go clean them up." I was about to walk away when Sarah's voice held me back. It was as sharp as a razor. "No need, Jack. The heater in the guest room is broken. It's very cold. Mark is not used to the cold." I turned around, looking straight into my wife's eyes. "So what?" Sarah smoothed her hair, avoiding my gaze for a second, then looked up again, full of defiance. "So I arranged for Mark to sleep in the master bedroom. The world around me seemed to stop spinning.
master bedroom. The main bedroom, where our wedding bed was, where I had built the walk-in closet with my own hands, where she and I had vowed to be together for life. "What did you say?" I asked again, my voice trembling.
You let a stranger sleep in our bedroom? Then where do I sleep? Where do you sleep? Mark chuckled softly, the sound like needles pricking my ears. Oh, don't worry, buddy. Sarah will sleep in Frank's room to take care of her dad. As for you, he looked at the long Italian leather sofa in the middle of the living room. This sofa looks pretty comfortable.
Anyway, you are used to sleeping rough at construction sites, right? I looked at Sarah, waiting for her to object, waiting for her to defend her husband. But no, she just shrugged. "It's just one night, Jack. Don't be so selfish. Mark is a VIP guest. He can help our family change our lives. Go shower in the shared bathroom on the first floor, then get your blankets and pillows out here."
Remember to walk softly, Mark. Needs to rest early for the meeting tomorrow. Humiliation rose to my throat. It was bitter. I wanted to rush in and smash that smooth face of Mark. I wanted to scream in Frank's face about who paid for the bottle of wine he was drinking. I wanted to drag Sarah out into the rain so she would wake up. But I did nothing. I stood there, hands clenched into fists in my soaked pockets.
He naturally took my favorite mug, the one with the sketch of the first building I designed printed on it. He poured coffee, took a sip, then frowned. "The coffee is too weak. Buy the dark roast next time. This type is only for women." He put the mug down on the granite counter, a dry clack sound. Sarah and Frank also just came down. They laughed and talked loudly, completely ignoring my presence in the kitchen corner.
I looked at this house. Every wooden beam, every brick, every electrical line was calculated by me. I built it with my sweat and blood for the past 10 years. And now I was kicked out to the sofa like a mangy dog to make room for the man driving a Maserati. "Fine," I said, a single word, heavy as lead. I turned my back, walking into the tiny bathroom on the first floor. I heard giggles behind me. "He is really obedient," Mark said. I woke up because the bone-chilling cold seeped into my spine. This leather sofa cost $5,000, but it wasn't designed for sleeping. My back ached as if someone had hit it with a hammer. Outside, it was still raining steadily. Thunder rumbled in the distance from Lake Austin. I sat up, wrapping the thin blanket Sarah had thrown at me last night tightly around myself. The house was immersed in darkness and silence. I looked up the stairs leading to the second floor. The master bedroom door was shut tight. I wondered, was Mark sleeping soundly on the memory foam mattress I had to save for 3 months to buy? Was he laughing in his sleep about the stupid homeowner shivering downstairs? I stood up, went into the kitchen to make coffee. The scent of bitter coffee wafted up, pulling me back to the memories of 10 years ago. Back then, this place was just a wasteland full of weeds and boulders. Frank, my father-in-law, bought it in the 90s, but left it abandoned due to bankruptcy. When I proposed to Sarah, Frank made an offer. "Jack, you are an architect. I have the land, you have the skills. Build a house here." "I have no money, and my credit is ruined." But if you cover the construction costs and pay the Munkin mortgage, the house will be yours.
I will just put my name on the paper. Because you just graduated, still have student debt, what bank would lend you money to buy a house? I believed him. I believed in family. I withdrew all my savings, borrowed more from friends to break ground. I drew the blueprints myself. I supervised the construction during the day and drove Uber at night to earn extra money for materials. Every floor tile, every light bulb, every doorknob had my fingerprints on it. I turned this wasteland into a lakeside villa worth $2 million. For the past 10 years, every month I transferred $4,000 to Frank's account. Transfer content, rent. That was Frank's request. Just to bypass the law, son, he said. If we write mortgage payment, the bank will be suspicious. I foolishly followed. I thought I was building a home.
Turns out, I was building a castle for someone else to enjoy. 7 a.m. The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs cut off my train of thought. Mark walked down. He had showered, wearing a white polo shirt and khaki shorts. He looked fresh, full of energy, completely different from my disheveled appearance. "Good morning, brother," he waved, walking straight to my coffee machine.
He naturally took my favorite mug, the one with the sketch of the first building I designed printed on it. He poured coffee, took a sip, then frowned. The coffee is too weak. Buy the dark roast next time. This type is only for women. He put the mug down on the granite counter, a dry clack sound. Sarah and Frank also just came down. They laughed and talked loudly, completely ignoring my presence in the kitchen corner.
"Did you sleep well, Mark?" Sarah asked, her voice so sweet it made me nauseous. "Wonderful," Mark smiled, glancing at me provocatively. "Soft bed, nice view. Only one thing." He looked around the kitchen, then pointed to the ceiling. "This design is a bit outdated. The ceiling is too low, creating a suffocating feeling."
And that window over there, why does it face the backyard? It should have been expanded to a full glass wall facing the lake. That was my design. I had calculated the sun and wind direction to save energy. I deliberately kept the ceiling low in the kitchen area to create a cozy family feeling. But Mark, a money launderer, was criticizing it. "You're right, Mark," Sarah nodded vigorously. "I also feel this house is somewhat cramped. Jack always defends this design, saying it's sustainable, but I find it just cheap." My heart felt like it was being crushed. "Cheap?" I spoke up, my voice trembling. "Sarah, you used to say you loved this kitchen. You used to say this was the heart of the house." Sarah turned to look at me, her eyes icy. "That was 10 years ago, Jack. People change. Mark has much better taste than you." Frank patted Mark on the shoulder. "So what do you think? If we collaborate, do you want to renovate this place?" Mark shrugged, pacing around the living room as if he owned the place. "Why renovate? It's a waste. Demolish it. Demolish it all and rebuild. I will build a modern glass villa, minimalist style, with an infinity pool connecting to the lake. That is worthy of this land." "And worthy of you, Sarah." He winked at my wife. My wife blushed, giggling. "Sounds amazing." Frank nodded in satisfaction. "Good, very good. We will discuss this deal in detail." They continued discussing demolishing the house, demolishing 10 years of my life, right in front of my face. I stood there, holding the cold cup of coffee. I felt myself fading. I became transparent. I was a ghost in the house I paid for. An invisible man. But they forgot one thing. The invisible man can see things that ordinary people don't see. And the invisible man can hear secrets they think are hidden. Frank's phone on the table buzzed. He was busy looking at Mark's sketch, so he didn't notice. I glanced at the screen. A message from the bank. Warning, mortgage payment for this month is 5 days overdue. I frowned. I transferred the money to him last week.
$4,000. Why did the bank report it overdue? What did Frank do with that money? And why did Mark mention collaboration? A cold suspicion began to creep into my mind. It was colder than the rain last night. I put the coffee cup down in the sink. "I'm going to work," I said. No one answered. They were busy dreaming about the glass villa. I walked out to the garage, climbed into the old pickup truck. I didn't go to the construction site. I drove to another place, to the private detective office I had seen on a billboard. If they wanted to make me invisible, I would become the nightmare they never see until it's too late. The private detective office was located in a dilapidated building in East Austin. The air inside was thick with the smell of cigarette smoke and stale coffee. The man sitting opposite me was named Ray.
Former IRS inspector, now digging up dirty secrets for a living. Ray pushed a thick file towards me. "You might want to sit tight before reading this, Jack," he said. "Your father-in-law, Frank Miller, is an artist. A genius tax evasion artist." I opened the file. The numbers danced before my eyes, but their meaning was clear and devastating.
Frank hasn't declared actual income for the past 5 years, Ray explained, tapping a nicotine-stained finger on the paper. He declares continuous losses from phantom investments. But look here, Ray flipped to the next page. He has 3 black cards that have exceeded their limits. And most importantly, Ray pulled out a printout from the bank. The lakeside house you are living in.
The house you think you are paying the mortgage on? Frank used it as collateral to take out 3 other second mortgages, totaling $500,000. And he spent all that money on gambling and trips he lied were business trips. My blood froze. "What about my money?" I asked, my voice breaking. "The $4,000 a month I sent him?" Ray looked at me with pity.
He only uses half of that to pay the minimum interest to the bank to keep the house from being foreclosed. The rest, he pockets it. Basically, you are paying for him to visit prostitutes and play cards. And the bad news isn't over. Ray flipped the last paper. The bank has sent the 3rd warning notice. If the principal and interest are not paid in full within the next 30 days, the house will go into foreclosure.
I closed the file. A feeling of nausea rose in my throat. 10 years. 10 years I worked like an ox to feed a parasite. "Thanks, Ray," I said, standing up. "I owe you this time." "What do you plan to do?" Ray asked after me. "Sue him? You're not on the deed, hard to win." I stopped at the door. Smiled, a cold smile. I didn't recognize myself. "No, Ray. Lawsuits take time. I will help him. Help him lose everything."
I returned home when it was already dusk. The Maserati was still parked there arrogantly. Jazz music and the sound of clinking glasses echoed from inside.
They were partying again. I crept around to the back of the house. Frank's office window was slightly open to let out cigar smoke. I hid in the rose bushes, holding my breath to listen. Inside, Frank's voice rang out, slurred from being drunk. "Don't worry, Mark. Jack is stupid. He still thinks he is paying for the house. I will sell this house to you for $800,000 on paper, $1.2 million lower than the market price. That way, I will declare a capital loss so I don't have to pay income tax." Mark's voice rang out, slick and smug. "As for the $500,000 difference, I will wire cash to your account in Cayman. Clean, no trace."
But what about your daughter? Will Sarah agree? Sarah? Frank scoffed. She is sick of that builder to her neck. As soon as the house is sold, she will file for divorce. The reason is irreconcilable differences. Jack will be kicked to the curb empty-handed. He is not on the deed, can't prove assets. He won't get a single cent. I heard Sarah giggle. "Mark, remember your promise to take me to Paris?" I can't stand the smell of Jack's sweat for another day. I sank to the ground. The thorny rose bushes scratched my hands, but I felt no pain. The pain in my heart was 1,000 times greater. Betrayal. Blatant. Cruel. They didn't just want to kick me out. They wanted to squeeze me dry and discard me like an old glove. I pulled out my phone. My trembling hand dialed a number. Not the police.
But the tax attorney Ray had introduced. "Hello, Attorney Goldman? This is Jack. I want to report a large-scale tax evasion case, and I want to activate the nuclear option." The next 2 weeks were a perfect play. I played the role of a remorseful and resigned husband. I slept on the sofa without a single complaint. I cooked breakfast for all 3 of them. I even ironed Mark's shirts.
"Jack is so good," Sarah said, stroking my cheek like petting a puppy. "If this keeps up, when Mark is done, we will consider letting you stay as a butler," she mocked. I bowed my head, hiding my cold gaze. "Yes, thank you." In the dark, I acted. I secretly withdrew all my retirement savings. I sold all the crypto and stock portfolios I had silently accumulated from my years of overtime.
In total, I had nearly $900,000 in liquid cash. Not enough to buy the house at market price, but enough for my plan. At the same time, I made the most important move. I stopped transferring the $4,000 to Frank. Instead, I used that money to rent a small apartment near downtown. The 15th of the month, Frank received a notice from the bank. He rushed down to the kitchen, face red, throwing his phone on the table. "Jack!"
"Where is the money? Why haven't you transferred the rent? The bank is calling me off the hook." I was washing dishes, calmly turning around. "Dad, the project payment is delayed this month. I'm really tight on cash. Probably won't have it until next week." Frank screamed. "Next week? Are you crazy? Next week is overdue. Do you want me to lose my credit?" I wiped my hands on my apron, shrugging.
Why worry, Dad? Mark is so rich. Why don't you ask him for an advance? He is buying this house anyway, right? Frank froze. He stared at me, sweat beading on his forehead. He dared not tell me he had spent all the money and didn't have a cent to pay interest. And he dared not ask Mark for fear of revealing he was broke. You watch out, he hissed and walked away.
I watched his retreating figure.
The rat was starting to panic in the trap. The bank wouldn't wait until next week. With Frank's ruined credit profile and 3 previous warnings, they would accelerate the foreclosure process. And that was exactly when I would strike. 1 week later, the contract signing party was set. Mark had agreed to buy the house on paper to save Frank from financial trouble with the bank.
In reality, it was a play to disperse assets before the bank could seize them. They invited a private lawyer to the house. Champagne was chilled. Sarah wore a seductive red dress, sitting close to Mark. I was allowed to stand and serve wine in the corner of the room. "Come, a toast!" Mark shouted. "Cheers to the new partnership, and cheers to Sarah's freedom." He glanced at me, smirking. I filled his glass. "Cheers," I whispered.
In reality, it was a play to disperse assets before the bank could seize them. They invited a private lawyer to the house. Champagne was chilled. Sarah wore a seductive red dress, sitting close to Mark. I was allowed to stand and serve wine in the corner of the room. "Come, a toast!" Mark shouted. "Cheers to the new partnership, and cheers to Sarah's freedom." He glanced at me, smirking. I filled his glass. "Cheers," I whispered. Cold wind and rain sprayed into the cozy living room. 3 men in black suits stepped in, rainwater dripping down their shoulders. The leader held up his badge. "Federal agents, Internal Revenue Service. We have an asset freeze order for Mr. Frank Miller." Frank dropped his wine glass. The sound of shattering glass pierced the romantic jazz music. "What?" he stammered, his face drained of blood. "You are mistaken. I pay my taxes fully." The agent stepped forward, placing a thick file on the table, covering the unsigned house sale contract. "Mr. Frank, you are accused of federal income tax evasion for 5 consecutive years, bank loan application fraud, and money laundering through phantom real estate transactions." Mark jumped up, his face changing color. He backed away, trying to create distance from Frank. I have nothing to do with this. I am just a guest." The agent glanced at Mark. "Mr. Mark Sterling, we also have a summons for you regarding suspicion of aiding money laundering, but that is for another department. Today, we are here to execute the collateral seizure order." Another man stepped up, holding a leather briefcase. "I am the representative of the National Bank." "Mr. Miller, you have seriously violated the loan contract terms. Your mortgage loan is 30 days overdue. Plus, the asset is being investigated by the IRS. The bank officially activates the immediate foreclosure clause." Sarah screamed. "Foreclosure? Are you crazy? This is my house. My father is about to sell it. We are about to have money to pay the debt." The bank representative shook his head coldly. "Mrs. Miller, this asset is currently frozen. No buying, selling, or transferring allowed in any form. This sale contract," he pointed to the paper on the table, "is void. You have 24 hours to collect personal belongings and leave. The house will be sealed and put up for public auction next Friday to recover the debt." Frank collapsed onto the sofa. He clutched his chest, gasping. "No, impossible. My legacy. Mark, do something. You have money. Pay the debt for me." Mark smiled forcedly, adjusting his collar. "Sorry, Frank, My money is in long-term investment funds. Can't withdraw immediately. Besides, I don't want to get involved with the law." He turned to Sarah. "I have to go. I will call you later." He grabbed his jacket and bolted out the door, fast as a weasel. Sarah stood frozen, watching her lover run away. Then, watching her father collapsing. I stood in the corner, still holding the wine bottle. I poured myself a full glass, took a sip. The wine tasted wonderful. It tasted like justice. Friday. The Travis County real estate auction floor was packed. Sharks, bargain hunters, everyone was there. The Lake Austin house was the biggest steal of today's session. I sat in the last row, cap pulled low, wearing a medical mask. No one recognized me. Frank and Sarah were also there. They stood in the corner, looking haggard and gaunt. They hoped the bid would be higher than the debt, so they could salvage some surplus cash. Asset ID 004, Lake Austin Villa, the auctioneer banged his gavel. Starting price $500,000. $550,000, a pot-bellied man shouted. $600,000, a woman in a red suit retorted. The price rose dizzily.
Frank squeezed Sarah's hand, eyes glued to the electronic board. 700,000, 750,000, 800,000. At the $800,000 mark, the atmosphere slackened. This was the market price for a foreclosed home with legal risks. 800,000 going once, 800,000 going twice. Frank sighed in relief. At this price, after paying the bank debt and tax penalties, he would still have about 100,000 left.
Enough to live temporarily. But he rejoiced too soon. I raised paddle number 99. $900,000, I said, my voice deep and clear. The whole room turned to look. Frank squinted, trying to see which crazy guy bid so high, but I sat in the shadows. 900,000, the auctioneer shouted excitedly. Anyone higher? Silence fell. No investor wanted to risk going over that number. 900,000 going once. 900,000 going twice. And bang! The gavel struck the wooden desk decisively. Sold to investor number 99. I stood up, walked straight to the secretary's desk to do the paperwork. Frank and Sarah rushed over. They were curious to know who the new owner was. They wanted to beg, to flatter, to ask for an extension on moving out. "Hello, new boss," Frank said, his voice fawning. "I kept that house very carefully." I signed the auction record. Signature decisive. Jack Daniel. I took off my mask, turned to look at them. The smile on Frank's lips died. Sarah's face drained of blood. "Jack," Sarah gasped, her voice breaking like wind whistling through a crack. Why are you here? Where did you get the money to buy?" I held the certificate of asset ownership, folded it carefully, and put it in my breast pocket. My 10 years of savings, Sarah.
Money you thought I didn't have because I was just a builder. And money from selling all my stocks. I stepped closer to Frank, leaned close to his ear. Thanks, Dad, for leaving the house at a bargain price. 900,000 for a house worth $2 million. Minus your tax debts and bank penalties. You probably owe the state another 200,000. Good luck with the IRS.
Frank clutched his chest, staggering as if about to fall. Sarah grabbed my hand, tears starting to flow. Jack, us. The house is ours, right? You did this to keep the house for us, right? I brushed her hand away, coldly, decisively. No, Sarah. The house is mine. As for you people, you are illegal trespassers. 1 hour later, I drove the old pickup truck back to the house, but this time the feeling was completely different. I was no longer a squatter. I was the owner.
I parked right in the center spot of the garage, where Mark's Maserati used to park. I walked into the house. Frank and Sarah had arrived before me. They were sitting dazedly amidst a mess of cardboard boxes in the living room. Mark had vanished without a trace. He had fled as soon as he heard Frank was bankrupt. Seeing me enter, Sarah ran over, kneeling at my feet. "Jack, I'm sorry. I was tricked by Mark. He seduced me."
I still love you. Let me stay. I will do anything you want. I looked at the woman kneeling at my feet, the woman I used to love more than myself. Now, she looked pathetic. No longer the arrogant, bossy look from the other day. Just a failed opportunist. "Stand up, Sarah," I said. Her eyes lit up with hope. "You forgive me?" "No. I told you to stand up to pack faster. I give you exactly 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I will call the police to cuff you for criminal trespassing." Frank sat on the sofa I used to have to sleep on. He looked up, his eyes full of hatred. "You are a bastard, Jack. I gave you a chance. I gave you land. I gave you my daughter. Is this how you repay me?" I laughed. Laughter echoed through the empty room. "You gave me land? I paid rent double its actual value for the past 10 years. You gave me your daughter. Your daughter betrayed me right in my house. You didn't give me anything, Frank. You only took. And now it's my turn to take back." I checked my watch. 29 minutes left. They scrambled to grab their belongings. Clothes, jewelry, handbags. They stuffed everything into black plastic bags. They looked exactly like refugees. Exactly 30 minutes later, they dragged their bags out the door, disheveled. It started to rain again. A cleansing rain. Sarah turned to look at me one last time, rainwater mixed with tears smearing her makeup. "Jack, where do we go now? Dad's accounts are frozen. We have no cash." I stood at the door, holding the wine glass Mark left behind. I pointed to the dilapidated shed at the end of the garden, where I used to store construction materials.
"If you want, you can sleep there for a night. But remember, the floor is very cold and the roof leaks, just like the feeling of sleeping on the sofa." Sarah burst into sobs. Frank silently pulled his daughter's hand towards the gate, disappearing into the rain. I slammed the door shut. The latch clicked dryly, securely. I walked around the house. I touched the walls. I felt the heartbeat of the house. Now it truly belonged to me. I walked to the fireplace, threw the wedding photo of me and Sarah into the flames. The fire flared up, licking up her fake smile. I sat down on the Italian leather sofa, put my feet up on the table, took a sip of wine. The astringency of wine, the sweetness of freedom. I took out my phone, blocked Sarah's number, blocked Frank's number, then opened the banking app.
The remaining balance wasn't much, but enough to start over. I looked out the large glass window facing Lake Austin. The lake surface was gray in the rain, but I knew tomorrow would be sunny. And tomorrow I would repaint this entire house white, the color of a new beginning.